All right, hey guys, welcome back to the Reefing Report. I'm Terence, and I'm here with
Mark Callahan, Mr. Saltwater Tank. Welcome everyone to the Reefing Report. Notice Terence is probably a little happier tonight because the team from California won the Super Bowl.
You bet, no doubt, no doubt. It was
But
a
not
good
your
weekend.
team.
No, you're right, but it's well, it is kind of my team in that I am from LA originally, so I can take that when I want it. I'm now a Niners fan because I live up here, but when they're done, then I go back to, to LA. So there you go.
Hey, Lou. When this team
And I
loses,
also
you
like
just
the
go to other
Raiders too, so
California
how can
team.
I mean, I'm not like a really big, like hardcore NFL guy, so I feel like I can like the Raiders and the Niners, and that's like blasphemy. So what do you want?
I mean, it's all right. I'll give it to you. No problem. Whatever works.
All right, Mark, so the elephant in the room is did you just dress up as Pippi Longstocking and took the wig off, or what's going on, man?
I need some red hair and Botox, man.
Yeah?
I like it's good for Aquashella next weekend, man.
Yeah, it looks like you got into like one of those airsoft fights and lost, dude, or something. Like a lot of headshot.
Poison ivy. Stuff we have that.
Well, we're gonna try to
It's,
ignore that. I wouldn't worry about too much because this is not the Today Show.
It's the zoanthids I keep chewing on. I got them in my pocket. I'm like,
Yeah, there
gotta
you
get
go.
those palatoxins out. That's how you build resistance.
Well, I'm going to take on some of these comments because there's some good comments as we were rolling in this morning into the show.
Morning.
I said
Where
morning.
you got all
Woo!
that?
Hello. Waiting music. So GN Zake says we need some waiting music. You guys go ahead and comment up on what kind of music you want. You want some, I don't know, like German death metal, or you want Enya? I mean, I've got
What
range.
about some polka music? Polka.
There you go. So I will get some waiting music, okay? Also, we had a comment here from Tracy Spellenberg. Tracy asked, how do you become a Patreon? I can't find. If you go to reefingreport.com, remember, guys, we're doing this once a week as a live stream, but the real meat's over on reefingreport.com, the website. In the upper right-hand corner, you'll see a donate link, and that's how you can get to the Patreon and give us a little love, especially right now because you can't even do the super chats or anything until we get to, I think, 1,000 subscribed. So if you haven't subscribed, do that
That's
too.
not too far away, though. We hit
Nope.
500 this week.
We're more than
Thanks, everyone
halfway.
who subscribed. There you
Yep.
go.
Absolutely. What else here? And Sean Clark said he's spreading the word. Thank you so much. And let's see. There was one other here. You see a good
I'm
one?
reading the comments about my complexion. This is great.
Oh, yeah?
I want to see what's going to happen for the next 30, 40, whatever time we're on.
I just like it says,
Oh my
evening,
God.
guys. Mark, what happened to your face? And
I knew it.
CR1980 says, "Oh man, Terence, the Raiders, I lost respect." Well, they went to Vegas, so I felt I had a little wiggle room now, okay, because they're not, in the same kind of general area. So, Juice says classic rock, okay, and Sean says he didn't even notice your face until he pointed it out. What are you just listening?
Thanks,
I mean, come on. Oh man.
Oh, everyone's asking about your hat. Come on, Terrence. You got to give some love there. We got a couple questions about the hat.
Oh,
Kick off
okay.
with that.
I'll kick off with that. So this week, I had a discussion with a very cool company. I don't know if anybody else knows who it is yet. Don't say, Mark. We'll see if they guess it. But they are a coral aquaculture company that just expanded. I can't remember how many more square feet that they said that they added, but huge amount of new area where they are doing aquaculture, corals, all kinds of different things. They are up in Ohio. Yes, Ohio. Mark's nodding. And nobody else I see got it yet. So it is eye-catching corals. So I won't leave that out there. Eye-catching corals. And you will see them. Interestingly, they are at a lot of the shows. And yeah, it's not unique coral, not cherry coral, not tidal gardens. It's eye-catching corals. So that's an E and then two C's. That's the logo. So they are actually at a lot of the shows like Reefapalooza, which is strange, isn't it, Mark? I mean, they're a wholesaler.
Yeah, but that's a good way to get people interested in your product and ask your local fish store to carry our corals. They don't sell retail at all on the website.
No, I don't believe so.
Really? Let's check that out real quick. While we're
I believe they're 100% wholesale, and when you go to the event, they usually just have, or back in the first days that I ever saw them, they would have like one aquarium, and it would have nothing but scoly fire in it. I mean, it would look like there was probably $40,000 worth of scolies in the tank or something like that. You remember that? Just all kinds of colors, like a Christmas tree of scolies. Pretty cool.
Bags every month. Huh.
Yeah, they are wholesale only, I believe. Anyway, so I was talking to them. I already have a dark gray hat, and I got it probably 5 years ago, I think, from them. And I'm like, guys, you need to update me on the hats. So they dropped. They were landed on my doorstep today. I was like, oh, perfect timing. Thanks, Ben. Appreciate it, man. So they're doing some great things. We were talking about the HR 4521 and what it means, and of course, they're worried, as are a lot of people with this. We're not going to talk much about that tonight. We burned it out over the last couple of weeks, and there's not a whole lot new going on. But you do see some people waking up. I saw Lou over at Worldwide Corals come on with the video. Anything else you've seen, Mark?
I believe some guys out in California, they sent you or they sent me. I saw it somewhere. They looked like they'd gone to the state capitol and raised the banner.
Yeah, that's Chris from LAX Aquarium actually drove up to Sacramento and put out like a 40-foot long banner with spray paint on it. And now I have to say I love the Gumsha. He is a little bit late because it said "Say no to 4521," and it's like that's a little late on that one because that one already passed. But definitely, at least you love to see that kind of initiative. It's LAX Aquariums. Absolutely. And it literally is right there on Century Boulevard, right next to LAX as you fly in.
Yeah, and after, I guess we're like 2 or 3 weeks out on this thing now, the number one thing that I'm getting from it is a little bit shocked at the amount of people in the industry that are like, whatever, it'll go away. That's their whole mentality about it, which I'm like,
yeah, well, I mean, there's a lot of that in general in anything that, kind of happens out in the political sphere. I mean, that's kind of the apathetic way that things go for a lot of things, and then all of a sudden something's gone or tax goes up, and I can just go on and on, of course. But so it doesn't quite surprise me that that's happening here. People are trying to do everything else that they're doing, and that's just, well, I'll worry about when it's time to worry about it. But it is time now, so.
Yeah, I'm just borderline appalled at the amount of people that are like, whatever, no big deal, it'll go away. I'm like, at some point it will, and it won't be. The ball will not be in your court when it does.
Yeah. When it's over, it's over, and it'll be quick, and it will be swift, and that will be that. So,
speaking of being over, Terrence.
Okay.
Bulk Reef put out a statement today. The silence is over on their part about the Tropic Marin recall.
Okay.
What they're doing about it.
All right.
So they came out and we pulled that up.
Yeah, I'm going to pull that up.
Put that out on the Reefing Report and the whole kind of a chapter that we had formed about the Tropic Marin salt saga. It's a lot of S's, by the way.
I know. That was on purpose, man. I love alliteration.
So they came out and said that, something that I didn't know, which I hadn't been informed of, is that Tropic Marin closed their Turkish facility. Now, maybe that's closed temporarily till they figure it out. Maybe it's closed permanently. We don't know.
Right.
But they said that they don't need any salt returned to them, but they're going to get your order number, and then they're going to start replacing salt with German-made Tropic Marin Pro. But they also, or Pro Reef, they also made a comment, which I think was smart, was this is probably going to take a while. They got to get over from Germany. They got to make it. They got to get over from Germany. Supply chain, blah, blah, blah. So it's likely going to be backed up for a while, but I got this in my email and it was very clear that they're handling it. And they made it very easy, and they were very transparent about it. So props to them on doing what I think was a great execution on how to handle a sticky clay situation.
Yes. I think that they're stand-up company. I think they did what they need to do. I know there's still some people out there that are a little sour, let's just say, and some of those people, I've seen them sour on other companies and products, so I give it a little bit of a because I've seen those people around before complaining about different things. But as a company, I think they've done absolutely the right thing. People will still have to have a receipt, and you just will have to take a picture or whatever of the label, and you should be able to get your credit. And no real word yet of exactly what it is or in what concentration or anything like that. What's interesting to me is that, there's enough really smart people in the hobby now that somebody I would have thought would have like scraped off some of that stuff on the side and mass spec'd it or something and, saw what it was or what's in it. But according to everybody from Tropic, Marin, and Bulk Reef Supply and everybody else, it's supposedly not harmful. The only people that say it is are people that said that, they did a 20% water change and lost all their corals,
Which is...
Yeah, exactly.
It's so many variables, it's hard to prove.
Right.
Again, as we said in the beginning, it seems like every salt manufacturer has gone through some kind of, I put your salt in my tank and everything died instantly. My tank was 40 years old with growing acros and it's dead.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think the one thing to also learn from this too is that, the most expensive thing out there isn't always the best, right? Doesn't mean it's not good. Doesn't necessarily mean it's the best. Doesn't mean it's not going to be fallible at some point. And, there's a lot of people out there right now going, I use Instant Ocean Reef Crystals. I've been using it for 38 years. Works great.
It does work. Worldwide Corals uses it. It does work. Here's a little input. Tom Honeycutt, who's a frequent watcher, by the way, he's here pretty much every single week from Tank It Easy, saying when they use the Tropic Marin stuff with the Turkish clay, they said molybdenum is what they found was high in the tanks that they use it in.
Easy for you to say. Say that 3 times.
Molybdenum. Well, we're already with Salt Saga. So
every time I see that word, I just don't even want to pronounce it. But so how did they find that out? Did they do exactly what I said? Just scrape some off and whatever, or they just assumed that their tank was high in it? So I don't know.
Tom, you're watching. Tom put this comment in on the stream, so he says that's what they found. Let us know, Tom, how you find that out, and we're curious about that. Thanks for the feedback. Curious on what you saw in terms of tank, if anything, what effect it had on your tank, and then how you found out. So he said ICP test was super high. So there you go.
Okay,
so ICP was high, how they found that out. Now, Tom, we're curious as well what effect you saw in the tank. Colors dulled, did you lose stuff? Thanks for the input on the ICP. Curious on what you saw in the tanks, if anything. Maybe he didn't see anything, but he just went out and tested because he heard about it.
Yeah, and how do we know that that's, from that salt or not? I don't know. And I'm not saying it's not. I'm just saying that with these kinds of things, there's so many intersecting variables on all of this. It's difficult to know. That's why I was saying, wow, if you were to, pull it out of the, the container and then somehow or another, mix that up and send it in, maybe you'd know a little bit more. But it also is good to know that, hey, if it's in the container, maybe it's not in the water that's going in your tank. So that's certainly good.
I think you'd have to do your RODI water test, and then you'd have to do a salt mix test, freshly mixed salt water, and see. Yeah. Where's it coming from? Maybe it's. People always feel like brute trash cans to leach phosphates into your tank. How do you know it's not your brute trash can or water container leaching it?
Right.
You sneezed on it wrong, and it. Who knows? So I'm curious on what they saw, but he said they found it on an ICP test. Terence, one thing that we posted this week on the Reef Report, which is now claiming to be super accurate, 1,000 times more accurate than a regular ICP, is that the CoralView guys with ICPanalysis.com now has a mass spec ICP test.
Yeah, so before I hit that, let me just get this one question out of the way from Rosano so we don't forget it. He asked, what do we think about adding a sediment filter between your mixing bin and your tank? Personally, for me, it's more hassle than it's worth. I don't really see the point unless I know that, that I'm getting something really, really bad, and then I wouldn't be using that salt. So I think it's just more hassle.
Juice is not worth the squeeze.
Yeah. At the end of the day, then you get a brown-looking filter, and you're like, oh man, it must be bad. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's not worth the time. So
no. Good question, though.
Yeah, it's absolutely a good question. All right, so the ICP thing. So for some time, the the guys out there in Colorado with ICP analysis have been doing ICP OES, which is what's been around forever. And I probably should have done a little bit more research before this, but there's a factor of 10 or something more available of precision that's available, especially for certain elements with the mass spec version of this. It is obviously much more difficult to run. Your environment in which you run the equipment has to be a lot better, and it can tell you certain things in much better detail. Is it going to be worth it? I don't know. I have yet to find, and this is where I maybe jumped the shark a little. I have yet to find ICP to be valuable to me at all yet. Okay, and on top of that, those I've seen it be valuable to, it's because you have a very acute issue going on in the tank that you're trying to identify, more than ongoing trying to like fine tune. When all the stuff came out with who was that in Germany that like you can now fine tune your stuff.
Oh, Triton.
Yep, yeah.
Triton.
You can fine tune your stuff and the Triton method and all of that. I never really was into that because all the information that would come back was always dubious, and I was like, how do you even know what this or that is? And so that use of the ICP for sure, I'm not a believer in. If it's about finding something that might be going wrong or way out of whack in your tank, that's where I'm at with it. I don't know how this will be better with that because, and I'm open to hear, right? This is where I don't have knowledge, but I would expect if it's something is really bad, it might show up in OES anyway. So why do I need the MS to get that extra level of detail? But there we go.
I mean, that's always been my experience with ICP is I send it on a tank doing well. I send it on a tank doing what I might consider poor. And unless something is majorly out of whack, they all are pretty much the same. The results are the same. So, I mean, the one time I saw something really whack was when a heater failed, one of those titanium tubes failed, and you got a bunch of copper in the tank. So I immediately sent it off because I'm like, I want to see if there's, what actually happened. I got aluminum and copper in it. But other than that, it's like, it's pretty much all the same. I still like to do it once a quarter just to have a baseline. But I'm with you. The thought of micro-dosing your tank because of what you see on ICP, if anything, my ICPs are always like, this is high. You should do a water change. I was like, wait. I thought that was the point, not to do a water change.
Yeah, that's what I mean. And if you were changing a major component in your reef keeping strategy, you're changing your salt, you're changing your two-part, you're changing something dramatic, then maybe 6 months into it, right? If you get a baseline before you make that change, 6 months into it, maybe do another one and see how far off certain things are, and then that might be a useful reason to do it. Since I don't really change anything, it doesn't really apply to me, but I can see that as well. Be very interesting to have Steve from ICP Analysis, maybe come on and tell us what all the juice is here on MS versus OES in terms of reef keeping.
Yeah, and Tracy made a good comment with something which I agree with, is to do one when your tank's looking great. That way you have a baseline, which I totally agree with. Your tank's looking rocking, send it in so you know. And then I would also be curious if it's still rocking, then keep sending in one once a quarter, once a month, and just see if everything stays rocking despite where your ICP might change. One thing that jumped out at me about this mass spec was they talked about how the process works, which they say they inject it in a plasma chamber. It gets heated up to approximately 10,000 degrees Celsius so that it breaks everything into basic elements. So therefore, I'm thinking chemical bonds being broken. So like nitrate is nitrogen and oxygen. So if you break those up, then your nitrogen levels could look really high because you've broken apart that compound, adding to a higher level of nitrogen.
Yeah.
So does that mean it's like that doesn't necessarily mean your nitrogen level is high, but it might look on the mass spec? That would be a question they'd have to answer.
Yeah, good point. Good point. And and also many people, not just myself, but many people have done multiple ICP companies, ICPs in the same water, and the numbers, not across the board, but especially for certain, particular elements, are sometimes way different, and in such a way that, similar to what I tell people with testing, regular testing, or the reason why having a Trident or something like that is important is if you test once or you send one ICP out, that doesn't necessarily tell you anything because it could be wrong, right? And so, and you can have confirmation bias just by looking at it and go, yeah, I knew my tank was bad. Look, I've got, way too much molybdenum, okay, in there,
Trying to get that word out.
Exactly. But if you do two and then they don't match, and you got to do a third, and that's really how it works, right? Until you find two that are like, oh, okay, these two kind of really align, and that's even with your own testing, kind of how it goes. So it's not like I hate on ICP. I just think that the tool is more of a sniper rifle than it is anti-personnel mines from the sky. I just think there are places to do it, and there are places where people are misusing it and coming to conclusions they should not come to.
So the interesting piece of that is, someone, CR 1998, mentioned they're a moonshiner here. That's the moonshiner method for those of you that don't know. They do an ICP test monthly, and then there's a spreadsheet that tells them what to dose and not to dose. I have a client who does that religiously. His tank looks great. And then I have clients who never test anything. I asked them for a water test this week, and all their test kits had expired. And their tanks look great too. So it's kind of funny how range of where we can run with reefer tanks to have them look really great, and you do nothing, and then you have them look really great and you tinker all the time. So it's a fun dynamic in reefing.
I always tell people the consistency is the number one, and the basics, right, are number two. And when you get those, all the rest of it is kind of just icing on the cake kind of stuff. And if you keep those basics going, and you keep your hands out of the tank, and you keep it stable and consistent, you're probably going to have a great reef tank. And so my laziness really goes well to that.
Well, part of being consistent is, if you're a moonshiner guy, if you're a zeovit, if you're a water change once a week, if that's your thing, then do that consistently. Don't be a moonshiner where you don't change anything in your ICP, and then the next month you're like, oh, I'm going to do a 20% water change every week. And the month after that, you're like, 5% once a month. Be consistent in whatever path you choose and run that path. Be consistent in that way.
Yeah, I agree 100%. But it'd be interesting to see what's going on with the ICP stuff. I'd love to send in a couple of samples to these guys and see, and maybe send one over to the Triton guys over there with Joe or whoever, and see what's really different, especially between the MS and the OES, and maybe have Steve on if he'd come on. I've been out to his place before, and know Steve's a great guy.
Yeah, let's ask him. Well, we're still waiting on the Tropic Marin guys who said they want to wait until they find it out for sure. So, we can ask some other side of the equation, the ICP testing guys. Not necessarily about the Tropic Marin stuff, but certainly if you're a company watching.
Maybe I can mix the two together. Maybe I can. Maybe what I can do is tell Steve to take some of the Turkish Tropic Marin and run it through his MS, and then we'll have him on the show.
Wait, let me get my popcorn.
Exactly.
I'm just gonna sit back and watch.
and then have Lou on too, and then just watch it go back and forth between. That would help with the viewership for sure, no doubt.
No vaccination needed.
Yeah, 100%. All right, what's next, man?
All right. So we talked about the mass spec stuff, about elements, finding stuff in the water. The AquaForest guys, who make one of everything, had a let's call it their own dilemma or a little drama this week with someone finding iron fragments, magnetic iron fragments in their Life Source product, which their Life Source product sounds a whole bunch like Fiji mud or mineral mud, for those of you that remember that stuff back in the day.
Yes.
So it was magnetic, and they, from a company PR standpoint, they came out very quickly and made a video about it, which I think is that's great. They talked about it a little bit. I started reading and I was like, oh, what's the Life Source product? Because from a marketer, I'm like, oh, that's good marketing. I'm like, if I'm a new hobbyist, like, oh, Life Source, the thing that gives life. Like, oh, I want that. Life Source.
Yes.
So I was looked it up, and I was like, It talked about how you can put this in your tank. You don't make it like a miracle mud sand bed like we used to do back in the day. But when
Right.
you just spread it in your tank, all of a sudden the corals have access to minerals because you put it in your tank, which I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
so you throw this in the
Let's
tank and
rewind
they
for a second
grab the
here.
minerals?
Let's stop 1 second. We're going to rewind a little bit. First of all, I want to thank Reefer Girl for giving the tip. This was actually in our tip line, okay? That Unorthodox Reef was having this dilemma, and at first couldn't get a response out of the guys from AquaForest, but thankfully, a few days later, they did do a video. And what he had done, what he did was took a magnet and was dragging it through some of the life source material, which we'll talk more about in a minute, and filings. Like when you were a kid in the playground, you take your magnet and you drag it through, and you'd get all the filings that came out of the sand. And was super concerned that all of this magnetic material was coming out of the life source product, and what that might be, thinking it might be ferrous in nature. And yeah, I mean, so he was concerned, obviously, and so they did a video. I watched the video today, and they basically said that this stuff was basalt. That's what it was.
Salt.
Basalt.
So you're dosing salt
Basalt.
straight into your tank?
Basalt. Okay.
Basalt. Okay.
Basalt, which is basically rocks that come from the Earth's core through, magma, and and then turn into sand and get pulverized and powdered, and over millions of years, etc., end up in this magic mud. But I did watch the video, and so now I'm going to kind of respond to what you're talking about, because I could see, your your little antennas going up or what have you about this. It was definitely interesting to listen to them, because they described how they go get it. We've both been to Fiji, and they're like, yeah, we have a diver in Fiji, and it's not near, the main island of Fiji, but they go out and they go down to like 10 to 15 meters. And by the way, I'm not trying to poke fun at this. I don't know if this stuff is good, bad, works, doesn't work. I don't necessarily know. I'll have some opinions on different things in a second, but I don't want it to be taken that way. Diver goes down. I find this funny, the way that they described it, because I started picturing what it is. Diver goes down 10 to 12 meters down and digs mud and sticks it in a bucket. And then this bucket is hauled up. They stick it, I think, in a bigger bucket, and then they ship that thing by container all the way to Europe. And then they sift it, or sieve it, as they said, to get out like plastic and shells and rocks and all kinds of other things that come out of the ocean floor. And then they put it in buckets, and they ship it to, or sorry, not buckets, they put it in the bags, and then they ship it to customers who put it in their tanks. And that's where it got interesting for me, which is how that you put it in the tank. Did you see how that is?
Well, I got to back up. Like if you sieve it, well, then why not put a magnet up to it to see if you grab any particles, like whatever. If you're hauling out the bottom of the ocean, like I would think that you'd want to do that if a bolt fell overboard or something. Like anyway, so
Yeah.
you're describing the method. I'm like, why don't you just put a magnet in there? But yes, then you put it in your tank, and it gives your corals access to components and minerals derived from the natural environment.
Yeah, and by the way, a lot of people like this stuff, Mark. So and some people even swear by it. So again, it just sounds funny to me. So some of it, it could be completely reasonable, but you sprinkle it in your tank, more or less. It's not like the old miracle mud out of the guys from Utah or what have you, or Idaho or wherever it was. That you put this in your tank, and there you go. The concern, obviously, is that you've got magnetic particles in the tank. Their answer was, well, these are basalt. It's completely, inert or not a problem for a reef tank. And, I say, maybe. And then they also said that because another concern for people is you're putting it in the water column, and if this stuff gets kicked up and it goes into your pumps, isn't it going to then grind on your pumps? Their answer was it's softer than the ceramic magnets used by people, but the fact is that most of the magnets that are used in some of the higher end pumps are actually coated in epoxy, so it would definitely maybe kind of wear on those. Don't know. But this is not unique. Have you used
I'll
a
have to
black
ask the
sand?
Biz guys. Yeah, it's exactly where I was gonna go with it. Black sand back in the day was magnetic. You
Right.
could easily grab that with magnets. It's a great way to get it out of your tank, by the way, if you want to get it out. Just grab a magnet. And GFO is rust. People put that in their tank. It's like the amount of stuff that we probably unknowingly put in our tank would probably amaze you, as well as a lot of coral food is yeast.
Right.
It sometimes cracks me up how people are like, we got to have super clean water and clay got in my salt, but then I'm going to dump this yeast and whatever other product that has minerals and just dump it in my tank, and there we go. But that's okay. But mud and yeast, well, we can't do that.
Yeah, and this, there are iron oxides and iron titanium oxides, etc. I looked it up on the ever awesome Wikipedia to find out about magnetic basalt. So I don't know if this stuff is good or bad or it's inert or whatever. What I do know is there are people, including them, who've been running it in their tank for many, many, many years and don't have an issue. And I would suspect there's probably not an issue from this. So I'm not trying to make it into an issue. I'm just saying. Now, the other side of this is, does this stuff, have a place? Does it really have, does it do something awesome? And the idea behind it is that you're bringing Fiji into your reef and bringing in all of these bacteria and everything else. But is that good?
Well, all right, I'm gonna grit some of the stuff and send in a culture and see what kind of bacteria we get.
That's the next thing I was going to think about too. Yeah.
It's killing me.
Nowadays we've got that. Who's the service that does that now? What is it called?
Oh, I don't remember. I've done it before, but it was like 7 years ago.
No. There's a new service now. I can't remember their name. Somebody maybe on the chat will tell us.
Biometrics. So that's different.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway,
but you're right. We could send it there too.
I was just saying that if you take that, mix it up in some water, send it to them, send your regular, in your reef tank water, send your regular reef tank water, and see what the delta is between those two, in terms of not necessarily the concentration, but the species of bacteria that happen to be in there or not in there. Aquabiomics, thank you, GNZ Zake, for putting that up. Aquabiomics, and Peter T, thank you as well. So that would be definitely interesting. And the whole idea that I want to bring in what's in the bottom of Fiji, to me, brings another interesting thing. I think if you're starting many times today with these super sterile reefs that people start with, it's probably pretty good because they're so sterile. If you want to kickstart the thing, it's probably really good. If you're somebody who cares about pests and weird things in your tank, probably not necessarily good, because maybe there is a weird strain of bacteria or whatever. I don't necessarily believe that. I'm one that believes in, kind of like chickenpox parties. It's oh, sorry, Mark.
I was waiting for that. It only took you 35 minutes to bring that back.
But yeah, it's like, grab, 6 of your reef buddies, tank water and sand and a little piece of rubble or whatever, and throw it in your tank when you're starting it, and you're probably going to have the best kickoff ever. Are you going to possibly get a couple of things? Yeah, but you're probably also going to have a much faster, better chance of having a balanced aquarium. What do you think?
And back in the day, it was like cycle the thing for 6 months, which I always thought was total BS.
Right.
But Jake, our friend buddy Jake over at Reef Builders, he wrote a post a little while ago about putting corals in pretty quickly to build up your biodiversity, which I think is a good idea. You think you get a LPS piece. You don't have to buy some big colony, but even like a nice Lobo, and you turn it on the underside.
And there's tons of stuff on there. Yeah, absolutely.
Tons of stuff.
100%.
Put that in your tank, put it on the sand bed, get your biodiversity going. Absolutely good stuff.
Yep.
Now, are you going to get that out of something that's been harvested in Fiji, probably shipped over in anaerobic environment, sieved, and then bottled up and shipped back? Probably not. I would rather
Well,
get
I
rubble
mean,
from
that's
you.
what I'm saying. Yeah, exactly. Instead of having, 85 different strains of bacteria, maybe it has 8, but 8 is probably 8 really cool strains of bacteria maybe that you wouldn't get, just from throwing in a bottle of Dr. Tim's or something. I don't know.
Sure.
I don't know, but I can see where it could have merit. I don't think it's as easy, to say that, oh, this stuff is awesome or this stuff sucks, But I do think that there's plenty of this kind of stuff out there that does get people's attention. And ongoing, I don't know that I would use this stuff. Ongoing.
Well, the other piece about the biodiversity to me is like, people are like, we got all this biodiversity. Like, okay, well, how many of those do we actually know that are good? And we know they're good because we say they're good, or do we have research behind it? Like, sure, it sounds great to have biodiversity, but maybe in 5 or 10 years it'll be all about no biodiversity. We want 2 strains of bacteria in our tank. And we're trying to get to that.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. That it's hard to know. There's so much variance of what makes a great reef tank from one person's to the next. It's really hard to know. Sam wants to know what's in my glass tonight. I'm still drinking old fashions, guys, but this is a Rabbit Hole Dare Ringer. So it's a really nice. The brand of whiskey is a Rabbit Hole, and it's their Dare Ringer, and it's really good.
I'm leaving that alone. That's just, no.
That's what it is, man. It's one of my favorite. Okay.
No.
All right. So, do we have anything else, or are we closing this one down early tonight, or what's going on, Mark? Let's just see if there are any questions. Let's get some questions from people, because we often fill up the space with our bloviating. So you guys out there, we've got a great group of people tonight. We've got a good amount of people. It's building up nicely. Let's give them a chance to ask some questions. Yeah, it is. Absolutely.
And while we're doing that, while we're letting the questions build up, don't be shy, by the way. There's no stupid questions. I will be at Aquashella next weekend. For those of you that are going to be out and about, Aquashella Orlando. Then I'll be in Denver the weekend after that, and Reef Stock for a Reef Builder show. So certainly if you see me, let me know if you have a tip you want to give me there, or you see something at the show that maybe I miss, because I'll be reporting, bringing you back info from the show, things I see. Let me know. Love to meet everyone. It's great to do these things, throw ourselves out of the world, but it's a one-way thing. Like, we know your all screen names, but we don't know the person behind the reef. Tell us about your reef, then we can make a connection. I always like that part.
Absolutely, 100%. And and one other thing too, I started another channel on my RV stuff too, so I will plug that at least once. You guys want to go see what I do on the side, in my RV, you can go check out the channel on YouTube.
Breaker 19, Terence, for God's sake, come back. What's your 20?
Yeah, exactly.
You gotta have one of those. You gotta have the CB thing on the bungee hanging from the ceiling.
Be like, eastbound down, loaded up and trucking. Yeah.
Yeah. I've been everywhere and so land. Terence Forgotten. Right here, Terence Forgotten. We're out here on the road, right here in mid-America.
Yep, that is me.
You got any smokies between here and home? Go, come back, it's all clear.
You do that really well, like you're from Tennessee.
I spent some time in Texas.
Yeah, well, anyway, the channel name is RV4 Freedom. RV for Freedom, so check it out. Give me some subs, give me some love, because it's like nobody's there yet. I just launched it this week, and we're having fun with the family, traveling around the U.S. and doing some RV stuff. Let's see, do we have any other questions? Mark, your Dr. Tim series, will it just fill basic info or some more advanced info too?
Both, and I'm curious on what CR1988 would like to see and what he would consider advanced info. Because I make content and I sometimes forget what I think is advanced and what is also I think is basic. So we'll do both, and I'm curious on what you would like to see in the series. By the way, so certainly CR1988, let me know. Tom wants to know, what am I drinking, green tea or something healthy? Actually, yes, Tom, this is water. Pure.
So boring.
I haven't dissolved any Fiji minerals in it yet, so I can take advantage of what's in the bottom of Fiji. But thanks, Tom, for being concerned.
Take a look at his face, ladies and gentlemen. Do you think you want to drink that water?
It's not what's in the water. It was the clay on the bottom of my
there you go.
Water treatment plant. They were using Tropic Marin salt.
Okay, here's another question. Emmanuel Dauxa. I hope I said that correctly, because it's got a weird symbol above the S. I have no idea. Maybe it's Dauxa. Maybe that's how you pronounce it. Anyway, just following on my question on YouTube about the reef delete, Mark, have you finally got a shot at it with hair algae or bryopsis?
No, because I have none to use. What we did do is we tried a more complex organism because they said it works on nuisance coral. We actually zapped a zoanthid with it to see what would happen, and we actually did it twice and then left it alone. And the zoanthid closed up when we zapped it, and it hasn't opened up since. It's not dead, but it's definitely annoyed, and we definitely did something to it. I would say, having used the reef delete, if you wanted to go after bryopsis or a hair algae, you better have a strong thumb or finger to hold that button down, because you're going to need to hold it down for a long time, probably several times a day, because that's a more complex organism than the Aptasia. So, yeah, get ready. I think if they could fix the hard button, that would go a long way, but it's still a lot more than boop. Okay, I'm done. Terrence is shaking his head the whole time.
I don't often come out so definitive on something, but I'm going to right here.
Here we go, ladies and gentlemen.
Anything that you have to stick your hand in the tank and zap something, okay, is just too much. It's just get your hand out of the tank, okay? Get something that's going to eat it. Get something that's going to make it melt away, like the bryopsis. You can use the fluconazole. Whatever it happens to be, don't buy some super high price, goofy little device that you're going to have to keep getting into the tank, because every time you do, you're going to knock a coral, away. You're going to get whatever's on your hand into the tank. You're going to piss off some corals. Your tank is not going to be better for it. So find the fish or the other, organism or the invert or whatever that's going to take care of the pests that you have. Or in the case of things like fluconazole for the bryopsis, do that. Fix the reason why you've got hair algae. And all these, goofy, because what do they have? They had a little zapper thing on a stick before, for killing Aptasia, and they got all the juice that you kill the Aptasia. I've tried them all for the most part, and I think it's not for me, and I don't think it should be for you. As I say, I'm usually not that cut and dry, but on this one I am.
It only took 41 minutes to get the clear opinion out of them.
There you go.
But it's good. I mean, this is also coming from Terence Fugazi, self-proclaimed lazy reefer, which I don't disagree. Every time you put your hand in the tank, something's going to happen, especially with a grown-in reef tank like yours. Heck, mine's not that grown-in at all. I still knock stuff over. So, but GN Zake asked a great question, since we're doing some Q&A here at the end. What's a regrettable fish you put in your tank? How about that, Terence? I'll let you, because you have two big fish that I think swim by in the back at least a couple times during the stream, which I know you can just feel, and you're like,
yeah, those are regrettable. Those are the Heniocus that I have, which are supposedly reef safe, according to an article by, who was it? Now I can't remember. But anyway, supposedly reef safe. They are semi-reef safe. They will eat any big like acans or things like that.
I love the drama. It's like pause, like semi.
Yes. Well, we had this discussion last week when we were talking about how people describe fish that you're going to get or animals that you're going to get for your tank, and how much information is like reef safe with caution. What the hell? What are you going to you put out a little thing like you put in your street, kids at play or something, reef safe with caution. You have a little flag, It's like, come on, give me a break. But at the same time, my family loves the Heniocas. My son Diego loves them. He's an adult now, but still, he thinks they're the coolest fish ever. And so I can't get him out of the tank. Outside of that, I think the only fish I regret ever getting are probably fish that had such a low percentage chance of living, and I probably knew it at the time, but I thought I would be awesome and feed them and everything. I can't remember is it Flaviguttus anthias, I think is the name.
Oh, yeah.
I think they're called, the common name is like a Sherbert anthias or something like that. Is that what it is? Let me see if I can find it.
Yeah, I'm looking it up, because I definitely one that, here we go, red saddled. Yeah, I know these guys. Look great. Tried them. They all disappeared, never saw them again. And disappeared, took off because they got scared, which is understandable in a new setting.
Yeah, so...
And then it was like...
Yeah, red saddled anthias, Flavigutatus. Okay, there's an extra syllable in there. Beautiful fish, got them. They are a little bit reclusive, but I did see them. They're just not going to eat, right, things. And that's kind of sad whenever you have that. So those are the regretful ones. I think also Avanci Anthias, also very cool Anthias. So, yes, fish that I probably had no reason to get, that I shouldn't have gotten, that ended up not making it, a long time. I mean, it's like the Avances lasted a while, but certainly not long enough for. Oh, I thought I had my thing on. I was pulling up the pictures for everybody. There's the Avances, yeah, those are the things that. What about you, Mark?
I got it. Well, I think this. I don't want to say. I guess regrettable in a different sense for me, because like I put a goldflake angel in my tank, and it didn't touch a thing, which is a beautiful fish, and it was great. And then when I swapped tanks on my old 450, I put it in a holding tank with the corals from my tank, and during that time, it decided it wanted to mow down my meat corals. And this wasn't like, hey, Peck, swim off. This was like, oh, thanks for giving me crack cocaine, like kaboom, kaboom, kaboom. And you're like, no, stop. So it was like, oh, why did you do that? I loved you, and now I have to say goodbye. So that was a regrettable one. I mean, those of you that have been with me for a while, you remember I put the Australian stripies in my tank, which everyone in Australia loved to give me a hard time about, because apparently that's like a junk fish that you catch off the end of the jetty.
Australian stripey?
Australian stripey, which the funny thing is, I did this, and then like 3 weeks later, they started popping up on divers' dens. So I'm like, oh, maybe someone at Live Aquarius.
Do those things get huge?
They get big, but they also just decided that they're going to mow down my meat corals. I have video of them like taking turns. It's like kaboom, 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 and they just destroyed them. So I had to get them out of there. They're actually at the Omaha Zoo. So any of you that are in Omaha, or you're ever going to the Omaha Zoo, they have a cold water Australia exhibit. The stripies are still there. Those came out of my tank. That was like, yeah, that was bad. Other than that, I mean, No, I'm pretty picky on fish. Like I'm not good at catching fish out of tanks. I don't like fish aggression. So like when I get a mix that works, I'm like, stop, which is one of the hardest things to do.
It is, and that's where I've been. That's where I've been in this tank with the powder blue tang. I've got 2 yellow tangs, a powder blue tang, a couple other tangs in there as well. And everything is peaceful in the tank. So I don't want anything else. But I just saw it swim by on your tank. Mark English said wants to get a trio of pyramid butterflies. So it's like a trio of pyramid butterflies. Okay. And he has 5 tangs and some wrasses. What's your experience? I've often wondered that too, because I know Brad Seifus loves his pyramids, or at least did.
Yep, I love mine. Yep, no problem with them. I don't see anyone bothering them. I have 2 very bad attitude tangs in here, and they don't bother them. Those guys are just chill. And every single time I get in front of my tank, people always ask me what fish they are. They get noticed. I love them. I only get them out of Australia. So they're definitely some of my favorites.
So they take any special food? Do they have to eat more frequently than other fish or anything like that? No?
They eat whatever they throw at me. I got some transshipped from Australia. They were 70 hours in the box. They came out of the box, and they were eating within 10 minutes of being in the quarantine tank. Didn't blink an eye. Fantastic fish.
So the quick question, Sean, to what's the favorite fish is my powder blue tang. And as far as those pyramid butterflies, Mark, I think I'm going to add those, man. Because if you say that they're pretty chill and whatnot, I do love those fish. I always have. And butterfly fish are hard to keep in general, between eating stuff they shouldn't and just not surviving. Yeah, I think I might put those on my list.
Definitely good call. Just get them out of Australia when you can. Makes a big difference, not only with short supply chain, but the survivability of the fish. Just a better quality animal.
Very good to know. Very good to know. Well, I think that's it, Mark. I think we should wrap this one up
Great.
for another week with the Reefing Report. Please remember, guys, that there is a website. Bookmark it, set an icon on your homepage, check it out once a day at least, and see what's new and cooking in the reef keeping hobby. Make sure you smash the like button on this video, of course, and subscribe to the channel. Get the word out for us so we can keep doing this and we don't get bored at not seeing numbers go up. Obviously, we want to have an audience. And I want to thank everybody who is a Patreon member already. There is a donate button on the top of the reefingreport.com website. And I want to thank those people who put in tips, like Reef Girl, who gave us a tip this week. So there is a tip us off link as well on the page if you want us to talk about something or see something awesome going on in the reef keeping industry. Anything else, Mark?
Nope, that's great. Catch me, Aquashella, Orlando this weekend, and I'll be at Restock as well, Denver next weekend. Maybe Terrence will show up to Restock. Still haven't heard if he's coming. That may be a game time decision. Thanks, everyone, for watching. Thanks for sharing the news, getting us out there. And we're at Terrence. I noticed we hit our second highest number ever on streams. So thanks, everyone, for being here. And we'll catch you next Sunday night. Same Reef channel, same Reef time.
Yeah, and I can even hit this.
Intro music. That's your job for the week.
Yes,
Among
I know.
others.
Got to put the intro music. Till next time, guys. See you next Sunday. Later.